Well, Leigh, we've got you down here and we want to get your take on some of the biggest issues currently rolling around in the AFL. And I'll start with Harley Reid. Obviously, on the tip of everyone's tongue in Western Australia, have you ever had a player like Harley Reid, and how would you deal with him?
Well, quite possibly. I mean, Harley Reid, as we know, if you go back 12 months, he was in fantastic form. He's an 18-year-old man-child, making the senior players look like little kids, really. And that first half of the season, sometimes I wonder, Brownie, whether if you play too well too early, it's not great for your long term, because all of a sudden he's in a bad spot, and I guess he looks like he's playing a bit kind of angry and a little bit over aggressive. And I guess, Brownie, I go back to 20 odd years ago when Brownie got reported a few times early in his career. Now, in the Brisbane Lions terminology, personality profiling, I don't know Harley Reid, but if he's not a big enforcer, which an enforcer is stubborn. And Brownie, I think you had a lot of enforce in you in the early days, and we're just talking similarities. So for Brownie, it was just controlling the aggression so he didn't get reported. But it's working with the kid, not yelling at him. But if with someone
Leigh told me to stop listening to music before a game, so I had to get rid of the ACDC.
And stop doing boxing training before the game.
He clearly hasn't lost his talent, Leigh, but there seems to be an element of frustration. I mean, someone somewhere coined the second-year blues.
Yeah.
And it seems what you're talking about, if you excel in your first 12 months, it can be really hard to back that up because progress isn't linear, is it?
No.
Is he in such a unique situation, though, that it's hard to relate to? Maybe you can relate to a Bucks, but when you went from Brisbane to Collingwood, but you know that sort of two-team town. He's got the media focus on him right from the get-go, and an enormous amount of pressure, and he's played in one of the worst teams we've seen in the last 25 years. You know, it makes it like if he was playing for Hawthorn. Imagine how much he'd be dominating.
Yeah.
He wouldn't need to do it. He wouldn't feel the need, and that's obviously a subconscious thing. But there's an underlying frustration because to me, he looks like a competitor.
Yeah.
Like he looks like a goer and an enforcer. Like
but just to go back to this enforcer thing, you don't tell enforcers what to do because they'll put their back up. You've got to work with them and ask for their help in a way. So I can't remember how we handled it way back, Brown. Different situation that you were in. But working with Harley, could someone obviously logically saying, Harley, this is not helping your playing form. So it shouldn't be that complicated, to be honest, that he's just allowing a naturally aggressive attitude to overflow a bit too much.
Leigh, the news out of Port Adelaide over the off-season was coaching handover. Probably a two-part question. One, are you a fan of the succession? And two, what would you feel if you're in Ken Hinkley's shoes, coaching your last season, knowing that it's your last season? Yeah,
that would be hard. I remember I decided the afternoon of the last game of 2008 that was going to be my last game, and that was a surreal afternoon. So for Ken to know that he's going to coach the whole year but not coach next year is a difficult situation. I'm not a fan of succession plans.
Yeah.
I don't know what you gain from it.
Yeah.
I mean, let Ken coach this year and let Josh Carr coach next year. I don't think a public succession plan does anything except bring up baggage and publicity.
Well, I think sorry, Bucks, the succession plan, which if Sydney had gone and announced and said Dean Cox going to take over at the end of the year, and they lost those first couple of games like they did, there would have been a bit of pressure. Whereas, Horse had retired, he'd gone away. And we're not even talking about Coxie losing his couple of games yet. When Ken Hinkley does his first two games, it becomes a big media story.
Well, coaches in their last year isn't quite what it used to be. I'm not sure what it was like 10, 20, 30 years ago, but there's extreme focus on it now. So you've got Justin Longmuir, who's gone on to staff, whatever that is. You've got Matty Nix, who's sort of rolling in. He's got obviously the extra year, but then Luke Beveridge, who has just rolled the dice, and they haven't won every game, the Bulldogs, but they've been very competitive. I think he looks like his control of the situation is as strong as it's ever been. Luke Beveridge, 3 weeks into the season.
Yeah, well, that's interesting because I look at Luke Beveridge now and I just go, I've seen enough. You sign him up. Sign him up straight away because he is the man going forward. Clearly he's getting the best out of that group, a young group. He's got stars and he's going to be able to retool. He won a premiership a few years ago, but he's going to be able to retool and go again. So why would you wait, Leigh?
Yeah.
You're in a unique situation. You're on the board level now, so obviously you're faced with these decisions. Not so hard after you win a premiership, but why wouldn't they now just go? Because otherwise there could be issues through the year.
But I don't think coaches get poached. The whole coaching thing, Bucks, you're the centre of the club, and the club's the centre of you. So I just don't think coaches can be poached. So forget about being poached elsewhere. The question is it doing any harm to the Bulldogs? I'm not. I reckon we should be grown up enough to have coaches coaching.
You don't think another club should look at Luke Beveridge and look at the success that he's having at the moment, and the success that he's had to actually maybe approach him?
To be honest, I don't believe that. I think coaches employ their coach when it's time to end that coach's tenure, and that happens for everybody eventually. Then you look for your new coach. I don't think there's much of that looking for a new coach while you've got an existing coach. Bucks, I might be wrong on that one, but I think that's the way footy works.
I reckon the last time we were in this sort of situation where the club was sitting on its hands and waiting for more information, and a coach who was respected was probably Ross Lyon. And he ended up deciding that he was going to have another look, and he did get courted and he did jump. I would think that, Luke Beveridge and what he's done, even to answer the question, in a perfect world, will you beat the Bulldogs next year? And his answer was possibly. So it's not full commitment from both sides, but the absolute commitment needs to be between coach and player. And the playing group, the locker room and the coaching group need to be in lockstep. And for mine, the 12 quarters that they've displayed this year has been as competitive and consistent as probably Hawthorn. And above most other teams.
A broader one for you, Leigh. The coaching, knowing when your time is up, you obviously mentioned that you sort of felt in the last afternoon. Is there a point, and there's a few clubs that may be starting to enter this zone, that maybe they need a new voice? Did you feel that when your time came, that your group would respond better to someone else?
That was more that I thought my time was up, because the coaching is a role. I mean, Bucks has done it. It's living a role. It's not a job. And the role's all encompassing, and you've got the excitement and the adrenaline on one side, and of the coin on the other side you've got the pressure and the anxiety. And sometimes you think, I don't want the pressure and anxiety anymore. So again, if you decided that halfway through a season, that would be difficult for an existing coach. Now, quite possibly incumbent coaches may well have got to that stage, potentially, that we've never known about.
Speaking of big stories, what about the number 9 for Harley Reid? We've been speaking about him for weeks. He lost his mind here. He blew his top at something that Caleb Sarong said, and then off the ball, Harley Reid has just taken him to ground. And then here we see another skirmish that sort of Harley Reid sort of involved in. It just looks to me, we've been saying this for weeks, and now it's sort of a media discussion. It's the media's fault for the attention. I don't know. That was a conversation between two players, and Harley Reid's just blown his top there. We've said it for weeks. He's a distracted footballer. He doesn't look focused at the moment. Have you seen anything today which would change your mind?
No. And I think that he needs to play a different role in the team. I think he has to play forward of the ball for a while. He just can't go as a midfielder. Yeah. He doesn't have the tank. He's not fit enough to represent the minutes that he's getting in the midfield at the moment. And I know he was tried at half-back today, but deep forward's probably the bailout.
Well, his best moment was the hanger deep forward, where he can make an impact. Again, clubs circling, thinking he will leave West Coast at the end of the year. Going to be a big story continuing.